Hey everyone, James here, bringing you another Inbetweenisode. Today I am going to be talking a bit about the aging potential of raw pu'erh. Going to also be drinking a tea that I've had a couple times before. I don't think I've ever brought it onto the show, but the 2015 Purple Dayi, Teas We Like, sells this tea. I believe it retails there for about $250 or so. So definitely a bit on the pricey end. And they specifically highlighted this cake as a tea that could age. And you might be like, okay, that's 9 years old already, isn't it? A little bit age. And the answer is, yeah, it's a little bit age, but a tea that is really, you're looking in, so like a factory tea or something, like you're looking in for the long haul, something like a Purple Dayi, which I think is, sort of related to a 7542 and kind of like basic profile, except maybe a little more high end. You would look for something that's definitely well over 10 years old, probably closer to 20 at the minimum. So that's why we are looking at this tea and not necessarily like a 2024 Dayi as far as aging potential goes. And so I actually originally had this tea during a blind tasting where I had, I don't know, probably like 15 to 20 of them. And the way I tend to do those tastings is I will drink the tea in pretty close succession with each other, not on the same day necessarily, but I'll drink one. If I'm running that day, maybe I'll drink two or three, and then go for the run after just to get out that energy and compare them. And so I find that method is very effective in terms of comparing teas that are similar to one another. Now, I have a harder time when it comes to comparing teas that are a little different. And so initially on this blind tasting, and this is not intended to be an excuse, just to kind of showcase how we perceive taste and things like that, I had this tea, and when you compare it with older teas, which is most of what those panels were, teas that are like 15 to 20 years old and a little bit danker storage. This at the time was probably like 6 or 7 years old. And so I did not care for it at all because the tea was just very, very rough. So yeah, just something there to note too. So really going to be focusing here on thinking about that main concept of aging potential here. So yeah, let's get to it. I only had one steep just a bit ago. Let's do this. Let's get my cup of water out of the way too. So characteristics, things that might bother you more in a normal session, but if you're looking at aging potential would bother you less. Things like the roughness. You don't expect a tea, if you're judging its aging potential, to be smooth. In fact, that roughness could be an asset. Different people will grade that as different levels of importance, but things like bitterness and astringency are kind of expected. Another thing that I think is important to look after, too, is the aftertaste, how it lingers in your mouth. For me personally, I think it's a good thing if a tea, even if it's super young, will leave kind of a sweetness in the mouth or the throat, way gone. So I think that's really, really important. Texture is also another good one. Textures are going to vary as far as that goes, but for factory's teas, like kind of this gritty, resinous texture, that could be a good thing as well. So those are a couple of the things I'm going to be looking out for as I drink this tea. Cheers. So definitely a little bitter, kind of in that hay resin category. I let that one hang out for probably a little bit too long. It's not room temperature, but it's more warm than anything. That was steep number 2. So here's steep number 3. Doing about 5.2 grams, 75 milliliters here. And I am doing Guy 1 here just so I can have a little more flexibility as far as the steep times go. Sort of in that borderline where I could use my semi-aged pot or I could just stick with the Guy 1. So sticking with the Guy 1, a little better access to the aromas as well. Hay, resinous, very, very factory-like. I wonder if this was smoky at one point. It wouldn't shock me at all if it was. Cheers. I say the body is like medium-ish. Yeah, and it's still kind of sticking in that hay profile. Definitely a good amount of bitterness and astringency here. as I drink through this cup, there's definitely some strength here. So in terms of that strength, I give it a thumbs up. Doesn't make me want to drink it now, for sure, because I can feel that potency. Last time I had this, I have just not been drinking a lot of raw pu'erh. So I drank it about a week ago in preparation for this episode, and it hit me pretty hard. So in terms of that too, potency is definitely a good thing. I do think that this tea, kind of like I described, you'd want to age it for probably something like 20 years unless you are somehow able to accelerate that with like Malaysia storage or something along those lines. It has a little bit of that herbalness, that herbal kick to it too. I think we're hitting kind of peak strength, peak potency as these steeps go. Okay, and I'm going to wait for just a little bit and hang out and just see how that evolves in the mouth. Nice texture. I can feel it kind of going down in my throat. So it has a nice depth, certainly for a factory tea is something that we don't necessarily expect teas to have when it comes there. And I will probably do one more steep, but I want to just see how this aftertaste comes. And I can already feel that that sort of acrid bitterness converting into sweetness in the mouth. So in that sense, also looking good too. The aftertaste not super intense, but I can feel myself salivating stuff and feeling that sweetness there as well. Okay, so I'm going to make this fourth. I'm going to let it hang out for just a second, and probably going to be calling it there. This tea is just quite strong, so I will probably have it a little bit in the afternoon, but this is definitely one of those teas that can get you going and get you very hyped up and amped. So keeping these steeps short as a result of just kind of feeling that potency. And I would probably start to extend them probably around the next steep or so. Aroma starting to lose just a little bit. I'd expect this tea to probably get a little bit woodier as it goes. I'm not detecting any fruit or anything like that. So the initial taste has very little sweetness. The sweetness is almost entirely kind of this woody, lingering sweetness in the aftertaste. Yeah, and let me know what other people have thought of this tea. I will admit to not being super well, plugged into the tea community as much as I used to, so I'm sure a lot of people have tried this tea. I'd be curious what people's experiences are with it. For me personally, I don't think I would. I just don't spend $250 on cakes kind of this age range. I just usually, when it comes to factory teas, will aim a little bit older. Nothing wrong with buying something like this, I don't think. I mean, the caliber of tea, I think, is definitely above average as far as like a factory tea goes. So I don't think TWL has a miss or anything like that. It's just kind of what you are looking for if you're after something kind of in like this mid to upper range as far as factory tea goes, as opposed to kind of like a 2007, 2008, 7542, 8582. Those latter of which I tend to buy just because they're a little bit cheaper. But then again, who knows? I don't know what the prices are like in 2024. Maybe the market has changed a little bit as far as that goes. But when I was buying tea, those were more available kind of around $100 or less. Very nice aroma coming off this. It was also very perfumey, one thing I noted off that first steep, which I did not have on camera. Okay, so let's have steep number 4. Yeah, continuing on with the trend, it's definitely still pretty bitter. Definitely a lot of hay and stuff going on like that. It kind of contrary to, well, actually maybe in line with kind of the blind tasting, these days I'm just having a whole lot of ripe and oolong, and so the strength and the rawness of this tea really, really does stand out as being quite potent and compared to kind of my normal tea diet. Not rough on the stomach or anything like that. It just is strong. And I think if you let this tea cool down to room temperature, it would probably be pretty nasty just to drink it. Okay. Well, yeah, I think more or less that last steep is just kind of confirming earlier impressions of the tea. A nice potency in the throat, kind of that hay aroma. For me, at least, this is far too young to drink regularly. But if you like this kind of like hit you in the mouth raw pu'erh, which I know some people do, this one's probably pretty good. Okay, well, yeah, maybe in the future this would be a nice one to compare with kind of more of a standard Dayi recipe, like a 754-28582. I'd have to track down something kind of in this age range. Anyways, I'm thinking out loud a little bit. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Let me know how you like this episode. Let me know how you like the Purple Dayi. If you have any other favorite kind of Munghai Tea Factory cakes around this time period, let me know. And I will see you guys next time. Cheers.